Hi everybody. Today I am reading in my backyard with Molly as my guest, and I'm starting a new chapter book. It is called Flat Stanley. I think you're going to love it. You may have heard of it before. It's Flat Stanley, his original adventure. The reason they say that is because Stanley has gone on several adventures in lots of different chapter books through time, and this is the first story about him, though. So it's Flat Stanley, and it's written by Jeff Brown. Let me double check. Oh, it does have illustrations by Mackie Pamantuan. Oh, look, there's a whole list here of the different adventures Stanley has gone on. Flat Stanley and the Magic Lamp, Invisible Stanley, Christmas Adventure, Stanley in Space. Wow, a whole bunch of them. But this is his original story. Here's our table of contents. It looks like there are 5 chapters in this book. Chapter 1 is called The Big Bulletin Board. So a bulletin board is it's kind of like the whiteboard in your classroom, but it's made of a material where you can poke pins on it, so you can put papers up there, and you hold the papers onto the board with pins, and it's called a bulletin board. Chapter 1. Breakfast was ready. "I will go wake the boys," Mrs. Lambchop said to her husband, George Lambchop. Just then, their younger son, Arthur, called from the bedroom he shared with his brother Stanley. "Hey, come and look! Hey!" Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop were both very much in favor of politeness and careful speech. "Hay is for horses to eat, Arthur, not people," Mr. Lambchop said as they entered the bedroom. "Try to remember that." "Excuse me," Arthur said, "but look!" He pointed to Stanley's bed. Across it lay the enormous bulletin board that Mr. Lambchop had given the boys a Christmas ago, so that they could pin up pictures and messages and maps. It had fallen during the night on top of Stanley. But Stanley was not hurt. In fact, he would still have been sleeping if he had not been woken up by his brother's shout. "What's going on here?" he called out cheerfully from beneath the enormous bulletin board. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop hurried to lift it off the bed. "Heavens!" said Mrs. Lambchop. "Gosh!" said Arthur. "Stanley's flat!" You can see the bulletin board is right here in Mr. Lambchop's hands, and you can see that he is completely flat. Oh, "Flat as a pancake," said Mr. Lambchop. "Strangest thing I've ever seen." "Let's all have breakfast," Mrs. Lambchop said. "Then Stanley and I will go see Dr. Dan and hear what he has to say." In his office, Dr. Dan examined Stanley all over. So this must be Dr. Dan. He's so flat. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Does it hurt very much?" "I felt sort of tickly for a while after I got up," Stanley Lambchop said, "but I feel fine now." "Well, that's mostly how it is with these cases," said Dr. Dan. "It's how that is with these cases? What do you mean? He thinks this has happened to someone else before?" "We'll just have to keep an eye on this young fellow," he said, when he had finished the examination. "Sometimes we doctors, despite all our years of training and experience, can only marvel at how little we really know." So he says, we can only wonder about how interesting and strange this is. Mrs. Lambchop said she thought Stanley's clothes would have to be altered by the tailor now. So Dr. Dan told his nurse to take Stanley's measurements. Mrs. Lambchop wrote them down. Stanley was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and half an inch thick. It's like that much. That's pretty thin, wasn't it? Oh, chapter 2 will come up next.